Hello, you hobby horn dogs out there. Rodge here, back again for another Saga Thursday. Today, we're taking a look at the Normans Battleboard. I do have some help along here this time, and it's Kevin Bruins, who is a Midwest Saga player, and he was kind enough to help me out with my analysis of the Saga board. So he's played plenty of games with these guys. I played a couple against, one with, and we're going to take a look at that board and see what those Normans are all about. Once again, this is split into two different parts, as I don't want these damn things to be so long. So we're going to hit part one today, and then we will wrap it up. Alrighty, we got Kevy B here to talk about the Normans. How's it going, Kev?
It's going pretty good. Ready to talk about the Storm and Normans. We can bring the heat. We're going to do it.
Awesome. So did you start with the Normans? Were they your first love?
I did. I started with the Normans. They were based off of, as many good transitional Saga armies, a Warhammer Ancients army first, and then moved them into...
Oh, nice. Yeah. That's not the first time I've seen that. I dare say it won't be the last.
No, not your first Warhammer Ancients rodeo.
No, cool. So you've got plenty of games in with these guys, and we'll be able to go through that sweet-ass battle board and analyze every nook and cranny of that son bitch. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
Okay. Well, so when you're building the list, your faction rules, is there anything that's, I guess, not standard? I know pretty much all the warriors, the Hearthguard, and the warlord can be mounted, which not everybody can do that. So it is maybe mounted, right? You don't have to be mounted?
It is maybe mounted, which then gives you a little variety with your warriors. Your warriors can then be mounted. They could have one unit of up to 8, could have crossbows, and then the rest could be normal warriors on foot. So your warriors actually have a bit of options.
Okay. And then the levies are just equipped with bows, it looks like.
Always bows all the time.
Always on foot. Always loving it.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Well, let's get straight into the board then. So as far as the, I guess, normal activations, it looks like it's pretty much standard as far as kind of the original factions go.
Yep. The attack was a little different. You can discard one die to gain one attack die for melee or shooting, so there's no ability to switch out for a defense die, but you are more focused in that melee and or shooting combat, which is across the board. So other than that, it's pretty similar across. Okay,
yeah, that seems to, like, I think the Viking one is melee only. A lot of the other boards can go for the defensive one, but they're all attack. Okay, is that foreshadowing? Is that setting up the rest of this board? Are we all attack here, Kev?
Oh, you're right. It is.
Okay, well, that'll be cool to look at, because that Viking board was all attack, and we'll get to see kind of how these guys differ in those attack abilities. So let's just pop on up to the top. That first one is Charge.
Ba ba ba!
It's a melee ability. It can be activated by any dice, so any old one that you got. But if you use the rare one, you get a little buff. So it's discard this die to gain 3 attack dice, 4 if it's a rare, and it may only be used on a mounted unit. Oh, okay, that's interesting. And then at the end of this melee, add a fatigue to your unit. Okay, so upside, downside.
Yes.
Do you...
Times is that kind of, this is a lot of attacks, so we better get a fatigue.
So you're saying this is an early battle board type thing. In the later factions, you don't see something like this, or that the 3 attacks isn't that much of a bonus. Is that what you're telling me?
That's what I'm saying. And also, there weren't, in the original group, not a lot of mounted options. And so the original Normans were some of the first folks that were mounted and had that long-range movement. So you can kind of tell that there was a little hesitation to really buff up the mounted units. Maybe that they later on would be feel more comfortable with.
Okay, that's a really interesting point because in the original rule set, the mounted troops are basically pretty much better for the the same points cost, you could say. But this is kind of cool if this was their kind of early attempt to kind of bake in the balance into the actual battle board instead of baking it into just the mounted base rules. That's really interesting. That actually makes a lot of sense here.
Yeah,
now that I think about it.
This is foreshadowing to like Crescent and Cross, is because the original mounted rules, you still move from L to S when moving through uneven ground, but now they've made it so you move from L to S as mounted units, and you take a fatigue if you leave or still in that ground. So this charge fatigue thing is almost like the foreshadowing for years to come.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. So do you, I guess when you play, do you find yourself using this one a lot, or is it kind of situational? I guess I have an idea of when I'd use it, but when do you use it?
Usually to try to wipe a unit. Like if I'm pretty confident that there's this extra set of attacks will help me eliminate a small unit, that would be when I would utilize it, because I wouldn't want to have this nice, very tired unit in the midst of a battle line or something like that. It's because this, my Norman unit will end up with at least 2 fatigue at combat. So I'd want to really make sure it's maybe something off to the side, something I've really weakened with some shooting, so I can eliminate a Saga dice from my enemy.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking here, is if you're going to get attacked next turn, you're not going to use this, but if you're wiping out a unit off to one flank or something like that, you can take that extra fatigue. You're just going to cancel it with a rest next turn, but you're still going to be down a fatigue. Could be nice on a smaller unit. If you have 4 dudes and just pop a dice for 3 extra attacks, that's pretty decent. If you don't care about those little punks. But okay. Well, moving on to aimed volley. Why don't you hit us with this one, Kev?
So this one, discard these dice. It's a common and a rare. Discard these dice to reroll any attack dice that failed to hit the target, and this is a shooting attack ability. So in and itself, it's not super exciting, but combined with either massed volley or storm of arrows, we really start to see that play out.
Well, I think, any time that you get to reroll dice in Saga, I think you're sitting pretty good, because that is not a very common thing as far as I've seen. I've seen the Viking board has a reroll attack. I think that maybe the Anglo-Dane has a reroll defense dice or something like that, but especially with shooting, because it's kind of hard just to do anything in the first place sometimes. So this one's pretty cool. I guess I probably use this fairly often. Do you find yourself?
Yeah, there's kind of 2 phases to the Norman game. The first couple turns are very heavily focused on shooting, and then the kind of last half is the knights sweeping in to try to wipe up units. So aimed volley is really useful right away when maybe you don't want to engage as much of the enemy, because it is pretty dice intensive. But it could be really effective to take out some really strong units, particularly like Hearthguard or folks that might be in terrain or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely looks useful. Okay. Moving down to Terrified. Now this one looks like it's an uncommon and a common, and use it in the activation phase. Discard these dice, and you activate a mounted unit. If that unit engages an enemy unit with this activation, this enemy unit immediately gains 1 fatigue. So, yeah, that seems pretty useful. Another mounted unit again. Do you take any foot, like hand-to-hand guys ever? Or
I've taken a couple, and it's not great.
Yeah, there's already 2 abilities that you basically can't use.
Yeah,
there's
so few that you would be able to use that it almost is not worth it. Yeah.
Okay, but I don't know, this seems pretty good. Basically, you're adding 1 to your armor, or basically giving yourself a +1 to hit, which I think both of those abilities are pretty nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just it's a very just nice ability. Throw fatigue on a unit while activating your guys for a move.
Mm-hmm. Bring them in, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Crush. Do you want to do that one?
Yeah, Crush. This one is an uncommon and a rare dice. It's a melee ability. Discard these dice. If you inflict at least twice as many hits with your unit than it suffers in this melee, each hit it scored against an enemy unit becomes 2 hits. This is a favorite one of mine when I have a good-sized unit of Hearthguard that are more difficult to hit in melee, but are also outputting a bunch of attacks. I've had a sizable unit of Hearthguard just annihilate units if they're able to get in there with because if there's so many hits in, but then like if they're fighting against warriors or someone that doesn't have Dane axes, and it's really hard for you to hit the Hearthguard, they do really well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well let's, I guess, take a look at this. Just reading it, I'm not really picturing what's going on here, but so you go in and you score like 8 hits against the enemy because you just used Terrified too, so you made them easier to hit. And then if you take less than 8 hits, you basically count as causing 16 hits. Is that right?
Yeah.
Ooh, wow. So it just automatically doubles. Wow, that is really, yeah, that's awesome.
So it's a one.
Yeah. And I don't know, it seems pretty easy to pull off. I mean, have you ever used it and not scored double? I mean, because you're going to use it on your turn, most likely. So, you know, when it's your turn, you can always stack everything in your favor. Have you ever used it and not had it pay out? I'm just curious if there's a memory.
Every once in a while, like if they have to go, if I'm using maybe warriors and I'm going against Hearthguard or someone else that has higher damage output, or if the dice just don't go quite the way, that sometimes can happen. But in general, if I have the dice to make this happen, it pays out pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of see across this whole middle is there's a lot of dice-intensive things. Of the 5 abilities in the middle, all 4 out of 5 require 2 dice to make happen.
Oh yeah, sure shit. Now that I look, all right. It looks like there's 3 in the next row too. So 7 of the 10 require 2 dice.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing with the Normans is it feels like you never have enough dice to make some stuff happen, so you have to be really careful about what you are choosing to do.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if that goes back to the trying to balance the mounted troops again, if that's kind of why they made it so intensive. But
I think there's something to that. I mean, even when I started playing and there were less Saga boards out there, the Normans were still pretty good, but as they developed the rules and some different options and stuff like that, and there was more cavalry armies out there, the Normans kind of diminished in power because someone else could just catch up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that looks like a very nice ability. I can only hope that Gallop, the next one down here, is just as good. It's a common and an uncommon. In the activation phase, discard these dice. Activate a mounted unit for movement. This movement grants an extra S movement distance and can be made through friendly models and units. Okay. That sounds really cool, actually.
Yeah, this one catches a lot of people off guard because you can have a nice big healthy block of Hearthguard sitting behind your levy, and then all of a sudden they bust on through and get a whole extra short.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't see anything that would prevent you from using that with Crush either, so or Terrified. Basically any one of these. Go in and kick some bunghole in. That's cool. I don't think I've ever seen anything that lets you move through your own guys. Except maybe in the Byzantines, they have some stuff like that, I think. But
it's an homage to the old Croc Seekers running through skinks.
Yeah, yeah. So, do you use this frequently, or is it kind of just situational? Like, is this like a trick that you plan? Or...
Yeah, I think it provides a different layer of threat. because it helps you catch other cavalry, and it also lets you stay out of kind of a 12-inch range of really powerful infantry blocks. So if you know you have long plus short, that gives you just a little extra distance, whereas an opposing force that was all infantry would need 3 dice to be able to get to you instead of your 1-2.
Yeah. It's like a triple activation then. Warriors would be exhausted. Hearthguard it would be if they already had one to start with. Interesting. So mainly used for catching fools out. Seems to be like what you're telling me.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Well, up top, let's go back up. Mass Volley, so this looks like a shooting one. In the orders phase, you discard that die until the end of your turn. The range of bows is doubled.
Yep.
Okay. So you can get crossbows in the list, is that right?
You can get crossbows, but crossbows aren't bows.
They are not bows. I don't know if you wanted to rules lawyer that. It has bow in the title. I don't know. That's all I'm saying. I don't know.
Good.
Anyways, that seems super awesome because nothing is that long of range that I've ever seen.
Yeah, 24 inches it blows people out of the water. I think 2 or 3 units of levies with Normans is a really healthy space because of massed volley, particularly combined with the next ability. But this just allows you to have such a long reach, and allows you to take out other cavalry really early so that you can kind of have more board control as you're thinking of playing against more varied armies. Or just keep taking dudes out.
Yeah, that's a really good point, I guess, as far as focusing your fire on enemy cavalry, because the cav is weak to shooting, but generally there's only 1 or 2 units you're worried about, and it's pretty easy to stay out of 12-inch range, but it's pretty impossible to stay out of 24. And then the fact that it affects all of your units, that's pretty awesome. For 1 die, you could see affecting 1 unit, but all of them, that's pretty cool. And we're going to call it right there. Big thanks to Kevy B for helping me out with his unique insights on the battle board. Definitely some interesting stuff going on there. I appreciate his help. We are not done by any stretch of the imagination. Next week we're going to have part 2 where we finish our look at the Norman Battleboard. Until then, like and favorite this shit. If you got a buddy who plays Saga, who's thinking about playing the Normans, send them this link and spread that gloopy gospel. Become a hobby horn dog today. Saga!